What's poppin' part? Oh, okay. Yeah, no, this won't do. Cut. Oh, that's better. That's yeah, that's way better. Sorry, it's the people that program the computer simulation that you're stuck in. You know, they couldn't load me properly, but it should be fine now. And if you tell anybody about what you saw, I will deny it. This never happened. Okay, your life is a lie. Stranger Things Season 1. Now, I want to preface this video by saying I do not hate Stranger Things. I think it's a good show. I mean, I love season 2. I haven't seen all of season 3. I've kind of just seen like bits and pieces of the first episode, but I do plan on finishing it sometime soon. And just don't go down in the comments and type all your stupid misspelled. Oh, he doesn't like Stranger Things. He doesn't know what he's talking about. All right, I know what I'm talking about. See, because I'm smarter than you. You know that you know nothing. Okay, my opinion is all that matters. My opinion is fact. Okay, so you can just, I don't care. All right, you're gonna sit there and you're gonna listen to what I have to say because it matters. I feel that it's extremely well made, and when the show really puts in time and effort into things, they do an amazing job. But it has a lot of glaring issues and problems, and these are mostly evident in season 1. And I guess I can understand that, since most first seasons of shows are an experiment as the shows kind of figure out what it wants to be and what it wants to do and what it is. But I can't just ignore it. I can't just ignore these issues. But before I get into these issues, I should probably start off with some positives and things that I love about the show. First off, music. The music in Stranger Things Season 1 is amazing. It is so unique and it's so good. It's very synthy, kind of retro arcade music almost, and it does an extremely good job at establishing the 80s aesthetic that the show is going for, you know, because Season 1 took place in 1983. And I feel that without the music, the whole 80s aesthetic would not work, which is a major positive of the show, is the aesthetic and the vibe and the look of the show. You know, it feels like it could have feasibly taken place in the 80s. And on top of that, they did an amazing job establishing the town of Hawkins. You know, it feels like a real living, breathing town. It feels like somewhere that you'd go visit. It feels real. And it's really essential to making you care about what's going to happen and making you care about the characters in the show. And I have to commend the show for that. And that's thanks to, again, the music and the set design and the costumes. You know, if it looks like the costumes look like clothes that people would actually wear in the 80s. And the sets look like things that would have been built in the 80s. It feels like 80s retro architecture. And that's pretty much where the positives end. I mean, I guess I can also say character work, but the problem is it's a 50-50. You know, character work in the show is very hit or miss, because they either have really well-made, interesting characters like Hopper or Eleven or Mike, but they also have kind of generic background characters that aren't supposed to be background characters, like Lucas and Dustin and Pop, or whatever the hell that villain's name is. And because of that, I can't really count it as a positive. I mean, I guess I can say that it's not terrible. And that's kind of where my issues began with the show, is that they want you to care about these characters, but the problem is that they don't have really much of a personality. They don't feel real. They kind of feel like just bland characters in the show. And I guess my best example of this is Nancy Wheeler, who is arguably my least favorite character in the show. She is extremely bland and boring and has no real personality at all like her character traits or what, that she can shoot a gun and maybe she's sarcastic a couple times. She feels almost like Captain Marvel, where she doesn't really have a personality and she's kind of just there. And I feel like if they gave it some extra time, maybe they could have made a compelling character. But instead, all we got was some girl that is trying to rebel against her parents, I guess. She's not really compelling. She's just some girl. And her only real trait was that she was dating Steve Harrington. That's all she would talk about, and that's all the show would ever really show of her, is just her dating Steve Harrington. And after a while, it gets boring. It's like, yeah, please do something else. Move on. I get it. Like, anything else is better. And thankfully, she starts doing stuff when Barbara goes missing. She starts hunting the Demogorgon, and that's when it gets kind of interesting, you know, because her and Jonathan Byers have good chemistry, and their banter is very funny to watch, and it feels natural. But, you know, that brings me to my next issue, is Barbara. Barbara takes up way too much time in the show. Barbara is annoying at worst and bland and empty at best. You know, I never cared for her at all, and the show doesn't really try to flesh her out. Her only real character trait is that she's nerdy and doesn't like to disobey, you know? Like, they really only show her arguing with Nancy over, like, oh, we're at this party, and just complaining all the time. It's like, she's annoying. But then she dies, and all Nancy can talk about is, oh, Barbara, let's find Barbara, this and that. And I don't really care about Barbara, so it just felt like a waste of time to me. I felt like if they gave Barbara some more endearing characteristics and made her a bit more enjoyable to watch, then maybe it would have been more heart-wrenching when she died. You know, like with Bob Newby, when he died, that was like heartbreaking to watch. But when Barbara died, you're just kind of like, okay, that's cool. I mean, at least something happened. But I don't know. She just takes up too much time for me. You know, they try to make you believe that Barbara is Nancy's best friend, but by the time the show starts, Nancy's cold and rude to her, so you don't really believe their friendship, and you don't really believe why, when Barbara goes missing, Nancy is so, like, hell-bent on looking for her. You know, the most explanation that you get is, well, maybe she felt guilty because she got mad at Barbara and told her to go home. But it just didn't feel earned. And because of that, you don't really care about Barbara. You know, she just kind of dies and you're like, okay, like, she's dead. If she doesn't, what's her personality? You know? My next issue with the show are the bully characters. Now, for those of you who don't remember, Mike, Lucas, and Dustin in season 1, they get bullied by these two kids at school. Now, this is a trope that I'm frankly tired of seeing, because it's always the same. It's always like, oh, these kids have like a quirk and then they get bullied mercilessly by these psychopaths at school. We saw it in Shazam, and we saw it in a bunch of other movies that I'm kind of forgetting, but trust me, it's everywhere. And I felt like the show should have done something different with their villains. It was clear that these bullies, they were kind of going for like a Henry Bowers type character. I mean, they even used the switchblade and threatened them the same way. But they didn't take the time to set up the bully as like a real villain. Like, they didn't flesh him out. He just was like some douchebag who's trying to be a dick just to be a dick. Like, they never showed his backstory. They never showed why he's a bully or why he's the way he is. He's just a bully. And for comparison with Henry Bowers, you can see, like, I never read the book, but like in the movie, you know, Henry Bowers has the abusive dad and he's got mental issues, and so it makes it more compelling to watch because Henry Bowers feels like a real person, and it feels real. But with these bullies, they're just kind of bullies to be bullies. And because of that, some of the things that the bullies do, it doesn't feel earned, you know? And the show does this a lot, where the show just kind of does things just to do them, and it doesn't really take the time to do the setup for that action. It's a lot like Game of Thrones Season 8, where they kind of just do things just to do them. And it was clear that they wanted to do them from the start, but they didn't take the time to set it up. And the best example of this is when the Mike and Dustin are out looking for 11, and I think they're near the quarry, and they get chased by these two bullies. Now, it is kind of scary because you can tell that they're planning on kicking their ass, right? And so I'm like, oh, okay, this is kind of cool to watch. They catch up to them, and they're at like the edge of the quarry, and the bully pulls out a switchblade and grabs Dustin and holds it up to his neck like he's gonna slit his throat. And when I was watching, I was like, what? Like, they never set this guy up to be violent like that, to be like murderous. And I was like, that just, for context, the reason why he did that was because he was making fun of Will Byers' death, which is also, what kid is like that? What kid goes to a funeral service and is like starts laughing and heckling? What type of sociopath are you? Like, the bully is very just evil just to be evil, and they don't set it up. And so 11 makes the bully pee himself, and because of that he gets laughed at by the whole school. And so his response is to pull out a switchblade and threaten to kill Dustin unless Mike kills himself. And by what I mean is that he wants Mike to jump off the quarry into the water 700 feet below, which is a drop that anyone knows would kill you instantly. And the show even said before that a drop like that, you would just die. So why would a kid respond that way? You know, the show does this where they just kind of make things happen, and then they're just like, oh, I don't know, like it's just happening just so something can happen. You know, and the same problem happens with Pop Pop, which is 11's father, I believe. They don't really explain it, his relationship to 11. And I felt like that's a huge missed opportunity. They don't explain what Pop Pop's motivation is. And Pop Pop is established to be a scientist that's trying to use the Upside Down and 11 for vague evil reasons. Now, the most they get into it is flashbacks of 11 doing things and going into Russian officials' minds. So at least there's that. I guess 11 is being used to spy on Russians, but they don't explain it. There's never like a scene where they're like, oh, what are you doing? Or, oh, make sure that you do this, or you have a deadline and this and that. It's like he's just a mustache twirling villain that's just being evil for the sake of being evil, and it doesn't make it compelling. You know, you don't understand why 11 is truly scared of Pop Pop. You know, they don't really show any abuse. They just kind of, the most pain that you see 11 in while she's in captivity is they throw her in a closet and she doesn't want to be in there for some reason. The show never ever shows what happens while she's in that room. They just show that she's afraid of it. You know, they never explain why she's afraid of it or what happens or why Pop Pop would even put her in that room. It's like, what? Like, I guess maybe it has something to do with the Upside Down, but they don't explain it. They don't explain anything at all. It's not even for like vague ambiguity. Like, it just happens and they want you to think that like, well, that's it. Now, this could have been extremely interesting to see. Like, what were they going to use the Upside Down for? What were they trying to do? You know, like, what do they want? Why did they open the Upside Down? How? All we get is 11 saying, I opened the gate. What? How? What did you do? How did any of this happen? They just kind of show vague flashbacks that interrupt the pacing of the show. And I felt like they could have done it way better. And Pop Pop doesn't even have any lines in most of the episodes he's in. He's just kind of... and he gives like evil looks or like just whatever. He's clearly manipulative. Like, they show him manipulating 11 and using presents to like get her to do his bidding and stuff. But they don't show what he wants her to do. They just kind of show her spying on some Russian officials, I guess. But I mean, that's a stupid thing to use telekinesis for. Like, there's so much other things that they could have done, and they could have explained it more, and they could have explained why does Pop Pop want to use the Upside Down, and what is he using 11 for? Why is she so important to him? You know, He's just like a vague mustache twirling archetype, and it's not that compelling to watch. You know, you're not that scared for 11 when you see pop out and he's like hunting her down. Like they could have, you know, shown what he did to her and like the abuse, but they don't. So you're just kind of like, well, why are you so scared of him? It just kind of seems like, excuse me. It just kind of seems like she doesn't want to go back because she just doesn't want to go back. And on top of that, Lucas's problems with 11 felt very contrived. You know, he doesn't like 11 for some reason. And it's kind of stupid. Like they don't want her in their party because she's new. That's not that compelling of a reason to not want 11, who can lift stuff with her fucking mind, which is super cool. Why does he not like her? Why is he so against her? That just felt very, very contrived for forced conflict, is that Lucas doesn't like 11. So that way they could have a whole episode where Lucas and Mike get into a fight and then Lucas doesn't want to be their friend anymore. That's super contrived. Like they could have done anything else to flesh that out, and like maybe 11 did something to Lucas, or something happens and this and that. But no, Lucas just doesn't like her for vague reasons. He just doesn't like her. It's like, what? And I mean, I guess you could say, well, I mean, she did the whole like moving the compasses. So moving the compasses when they're looking for Will, and that could be misinterpreted as like oh, she doesn't want us to find Will. But Lucas didn't like her before that. Why? And it's just Lucas. Like Dustin and Mike are fine. They're perfectly fine with her. And like season 2 does this way better when Mad Max gets introduced, and they don't want to let her in because they can't tell her what goes on in their party. You know, they can't tell her what happened the year before, so that's why they don't want her in the party, because they don't want, you know, to involve her in these things, and they don't want to get her in danger. That's a much better reason to be distant from Mad Max than, you know, oh, I don't like her. Now, this is my biggest issue with Stranger Things. This is what really, really got me mad, was the Demogorgon. The Demogorgon was so underwhelming. They spent all of season 1 setting up the Demogorgon. It's like just slowly bits and pieces. You never see him like in his full form. They just kind of show little hints and little like oh, the Demogorgon and this and that. Like they kind of hint at the Demogorgon, and this like builds up hype. You're like, what's a Demogorgon? What's he look like? What's he doing? And it's so cool. And like you're like ready for this thing. And so it's building up and building up and building up and building up. And then finally you get in episode 8 is the payoff, and it's underwhelming. The Demogorgon does nothing the entire show. It's so underwhelming, and it's frustrating to watch now. Are you invested all this time into the Demogorgon, wondering what it's going to be and getting ready for it, and the show's hyping it up, and then it's in the show for 10 minutes. And when it's in there, what does it do? It kills a bunch of cops off screen. It kills Pop in some vague way. And then after that, they walk down a hallway into a room, and then they use a slingshot to throw rocks at it, and then 11 kills it. That's what the Demogorgon does in the show. He does absolutely nothing, and that is so frustrating. They should have spent an entire episode just focused on the Demogorgon chasing after these kids. That would have been amazing to watch. And could you imagine where the kids are like hiding in the buyer's house, and then like the Demogorgon's outside, and he's just like going around, and there's a nice horror sequence where they're like, where's the Demogorgon? Where's the Demogorgon? And then it pops out through the window, and then like chaos ensues. You know, or like what if they go and hide in like a supermarket, and then the Demogorgon shows up and kills everybody, and they're like, oh crap, let's run. Like that would have been way better to see than walking down a hallway, shoot some rocks at it, and then boom, done. Like that, they should have done way more with this monster. It's so creative and so cool, but they don't do anything. And then what do we get in season 2? Demodogs. What? No, I just want the Demogorgon. The Demogorgon was so cool. But they don't show him, and they don't even explore what he is. It's like, what? It's just woefully disappointing. And I don't know, it just frustrates me to no end that they didn't do this. They didn't do anything with the Demogorgon. Apart from that, I have one more thing to say about the show, and that's I really like the kids. You know, they have really good chemistry, and you can believe their friendship, and their banter feels natural. You know, they don't try to censor the kids. You know, they cuss. They cuss and they talk like normal kids. It's not like those hashtag type things, you know, where a bunch of old men are sitting around a table writing what they think kids talk about, so it sounds all out of touch. Or it's like, hey there, homeboy, have you seen the new movie? Like, where it feels fake. No, these kids give amazing performances, and they just feel real. They feel like real life friends, and I gotta commend the show for that. So yeah, that pretty much concludes my thoughts on Stranger Things Season 1. I hope you guys enjoyed listening to me rant about this, and I hope you guys have a good day. Be sure to like and subscribe if you're new, and, you know, click the bell and all that crap, and remember to always eat your breakfast.